Hey everybody, John here from johnloomer.com and John Loomer Digital on Facebook. Here with another edition of the social media Pubcast, where each week I invite you to the virtual pub and we get drunk on social media. So this week, bringing in my friend, the man, we're actually re-recording because I completely screwed it up yesterday, Andrew Foxwell. How you doing, Andrew?
Hey, I'm doing great, John. How you doing?
I'm okay. So we're mixing things up. People who are listening on the podcast or Pubcast or whatever, you don't notice anything different other than I'm about to talk about something weird about video. But we're trying this on video as well. Just a little experiment. So this is going to appear on YouTube. We're also going to put it, I think I might just upload it to Facebook too. I don't know if anyone's going to watch like 30 minutes of video on Facebook, but we'll see.
We'll have to see. It's an experiment.
Yeah, it's an experiment, but it's going to be unedited, unlike the Pubcast where we have all kinds of sound effects and cool stuff. And I see just how really not that polished this whole setup is. And
It's raw.
it's raw.
What it is. So raw.
So yeah, what are you drinking, my man? You know how it works.
Well, I tell you, I've got a NOLA blonde ale from New Orleans for my trip down there.
Nice.
Just a solid one. Going to crack that right now.
Nice.
Get that going. And yeah, yesterday when we drank at 10 a.m., I had a spotted cow, which is everybody loves. But that's okay. We're going to represent NOLA right now and all the great people there.
It's funny because I was hoping you were going to bring the Spotted Cow because I got a Minnesota beer today.
Oh, what do you have there?
So this is Wonder Stuff, Bauhaus Wonder Stuff.
Well, wonder stuff.
Yeah, this comes from my brother because he lives in Minneapolis. So
Nice.
the whole story on the Spotted Cow, even though you're not drinking one, is that some bar tried to sell it illegally in Minnesota, and you can only sell it in Wisconsin. And
Amateur move.
So I thought that was appropriate that I bring in the Minnesota beer, and then you didn't follow through with the Spotted Cow and whatever.
Totally.
So cheers to you, my man.
Cheers.
See, this is all weird. So now we're not gonna have like these built-in transitions. No, we actually have to have true cheerses. And all right, hold on, I gotta drink this stuff.
I like it. It's raw. Unedited. It's like WWF raw.
It's exactly like that. I was gonna say that. Just
So
like
similar. Yeah, so similar.
So, just saw you recently, Andrew, out in San Diego, and man, it's been interesting. So like we have similar businesses in that we start our own thing, social media marketing, Facebook marketing, whatever. And so we're very mobile. I don't really travel much. I don't know about you, but you spent some time out there. You've been wandering around a little bit. I mean, what's your take on, I guess, travel and vacations and like when you're running your own business? Well, what are your feelings on if that's okay?
I mean, I think it's huge for headspace, right? I think those of us that own our own business, there's kind of two schools of people. There's one of them that's people that want to automate and they want to do very little, which is good. I mean, that could be a successful business. I think a lot of the people I know are people like us. You're invested, you get up, and you want to work on it. And what actually traveling does is it's good for headspace, and it teaches me and my wife, who's my business partner, to work smarter. We kind of work when it makes sense. We work in pockets of time very intensely, and traveling does that. Instead of just being at home and working from the home office and kind of being around, it allows you to be more concentrated. So that's a big part of it for me. But I think it kind of goes to what we were talking about with the quote from Chris Brogan yesterday.
Right.
Which I thought was really cool. And he said in his email about a week ago, that you don't take time off, you earn that time off. And I think that's a concept that more of us as small business owners can really start to think about and consider.
Absolutely. So you spent some time in San Diego, New Orleans. Where all were you?
So, well, we were in San Diego last month, saw some clients out there, got to see you, went to Social Media Marketing World, got to see our people out there, which is awesome, and talk about Facebook advertising. And then we did some hiking out there, we did some kayaking, did some surfing. So it was pretty neat. I mean, when you build a client base that's all over the country, you can always visit somebody somewhere. Right. And to have that one-on-one face-to-face meetings is huge, because a lot of us run these online businesses where this is the way we communicate. So to be able to be there in person is really special.
Right, and so really what you can do is combine the vacation and work. And I mean, I know what I've found, like when we were in San Diego, and part of it's because I'm just a chronic procrastinator and I didn't get all this done before we went to San Diego. But I knew though that I wanted to spend a lot of that time hanging out with my family. I got three boys, and my wife was obviously with us as well. And so we were hitting the beach and doing all this stuff. But I didn't want to be working all day, obviously, so I would set aside like this hour, maybe 2 hours to just bust out a whole bunch of work and focus, as opposed to like what I typically do in a normal day in my office, whereas I absolutely work, but distractions everywhere, and it's kind of,
Right.
spread out over the day. So I honestly find that I get the most work done on like a little vacation or workcation or whatever you want to call it. I don't know about
Totally.
you.
Yeah, it's an intense short spurts, I think one thing that's really changed my workflow is I now check my email a max of 6 times a day. So
How do you do
so
that? How do you do it?
it's hard. You have to pull away. You have to get out of the window, and then if you use all 6 of those before noon, you kind of like, okay, well, can't really look at it
How
for
do you
tomorrow.
measure it? How do you measure it?
I just keep track in my head, like, okay, I looked at it once, looked at it twice, like, because for us, a lot of us have that on constantly, and that's a distraction. And I found that it makes me a lot more effective, especially when I'm traveling. Like, I'll go through and say, okay, what are the things that have to happen right now, based on this, and then I'll say, all right, fine. And actually, I saw somebody the other day that had something in their email signature that said, due to, to increase my productivity, I'm only going to be checking email at 11, 1, and 4, or something like that. And he said it's really, really ramped up his productivity. So it's interesting to try to, traveling amplifies that. So how do you kind of make that a little bit better? But yeah, it's an interesting challenge as a small business owner to work smarter.
So you're still checking your phone? I'm just trying to understand how you really restrict that.
No, it's not really, no. So
Man.
it's email across the board. Now, like, I mean, have I been? Let's be honest. Like, have I been 100% right on this? Like, no, I have
Yeah.
not been. And so, do I break the rule? Like, yeah. But it having that in my mind as a rule makes it more conscious for me. So I'd say I hit that probably about 60%, 70% of the time. When I'm on vacation, it's a lot easier because there's other things that I'm doing. When I'm at home and I feel a pull, I want to do that, I want to look at it, then that's where it becomes really challenging.
Yeah, I've tried really hard to do that type of thing in the past where I like, okay, these certain times of day is when I do X, Y, and Z. I do compartmentalize in a way in that, yeah, the specific day of the week is when I do my webinars, when I do my podcasts, when I do my meetings usually, when I do my one-on-ones. But I've yet to really get full control over when I do things like that, checking my email, like all the distracting, like Twitter, Facebook stuff that goes on throughout the day that slows me down, or checking Zendesk, all the customer service stuff.
Totally.
Yeah, it's a rabbit hole, man. It really is.
It is. It is. I agree. But it's kind of listing out those priorities and making sure that, just like with the Facebook ad build, you have a plan. And so going about it that way, knowing that there's going to be distractions. So how do you try to go through that? It's tough. But yeah, I mean, getting back to the original idea is that you, as a small business owner, you deserve that time off. And it's not necessarily time off. It's just as important. And in some cases, taking time away from work is just as important as the work itself, especially maybe even for you to do work better, to be, it's equating them, time off as being different than work, I think is tough. So what if those things are actually on the same playing field?
No, absolutely. I always struggle with the entrepreneur, where I feel like there are a lot of us who boast and brag and maybe, lie a little bit about how much we work. And like, oh, I'm 24/7, 2 o'clock in the morning, Saturdays, Sundays, holidays, it doesn't matter. I'm working. And it's like something to be proud of. Like, that's not really why I'm doing this. I mean, now don't get me wrong. There's some people who, especially like single people, where this is their passion and they're entirely invested in this. And this is kind of like, if they're not doing it, then that's not fun. I mean, this is entirely where all their fun enjoyment in life comes from is just working. So they don't even consider it work, and I get that. I think for both of us, I mean, I know why I do this is so I can spend more time with family and relax and watch kids' baseball games and coach games and do all that kind of stuff.
Right.
I enjoy what I do. Don't get me wrong. But if it comes down to, am I going to be sitting here in front of a computer or hanging out with kids out there and throwing the ball around, it's not a tough decision.
Right. Yeah, everybody's got their priorities in different places, but I think that the thing that to me gets harder to listen to is wearing that "I'm busy" as a badge of honor.
Yeah.
And it's that the actually what you should be bragging about is that you were more efficient and you gave more time to really focus on the other stuff. So it's interesting. I think we generally do that a lot as entrepreneurs, and being busy is good. I mean, obviously for business, being busy is good.
Yeah.
But what if your day was filled and you were actually, instead of bragging, it was, I did some really satisfying stuff today. Like that's another interesting measure that you don't hear a lot of people saying.
Yeah.
So, right.
And I could say, right now, working is probably more enjoyable than watching Brewer games.
It is not easy, my friend, right now.
2-12, a little scary. But because normally I'd be like, I'm going to set aside part of my days. I'm going to stop working. I'm going to watch the game. Like, this is just painful. But anyway, that's a little sidetrack. But no, I everybody does it differently, and I'm always curious, Andrew, how you do it, because I know that you're kind of a really structured, organized guy. For me, the way I really manage it is by saying no a lot. Because when we have our team meetings, I mean, I start pulling my hair out as soon as we start talking about one more thing we add to, the agenda that we're gonna, because JR always has these big ideas. We should partner with this and create that and this and that, travel here and there, and like, let's just do this one thing this week and this one thing now. And that's how I handle it. But we weren't really planning on talking a whole lot about this, but I'm curious. I mean, how do you organize yourself throughout a week and a month so you don't get overwhelmed with all this stuff?
The thing to me is and I'm glad that I come across as organized, because I'm not very organized. But there's a couple things that have been really big. One is thinking about and taking time to understand what are the things that I need to do every day. And what are the repeatable things that I have to do? And maybe they're not every day, but maybe they're every week. So client reporting, optimizing accounts. And when can I schedule those in my day so that they're going to allow me to be efficient but not interfere with the rest of the things I'm doing? And how can I make them easier? For me, that was pre-building all the reports and then having them built in Google Docs in a secure way and sharing them with clients. So all I have to do is copy it, paste it, and then look at it and give my notes on it that'll lead the call. So that is something that used to take a long time, but because I've been optimizing every day throughout the week, I have the bullets of what I'm already going to talk about, of what I've done. So kind of making a list of all those things that I know I need to do, that I need to get done on a regular basis, and then figuring out how I can make them easier. One that I just did it's so easy and simple, and I know you do this for one-on-ones with new clients, is a new client questionnaire.
Yeah.
I for some reason have never done this, so it's handled via email a lot, but now I have an 11-question thing that is going to give me a really good idea of what these people are, where their priorities are, what their KPIs are, what would move the needle right away. And then that's a lot easier. So that's something that I think, I don't know why it took me a long time to do that, but it's now, that's an automation point. So not really automation, but it makes it easier.
Yeah, absolutely.
So I think those are that's the big, how I structure it. And then in terms of structuring the day, it's also, I block out time for work, which is something that a lot of people don't do, but I learned that from an old boss of mine, that he would block out time, large chunks of time, 2 or 3 hours at a time, and in the middle of the day. And that's, because you keep saying yes, you're never going to be able to do that. So that's been a big for me as well. So blocking out time to actually get stuff done.
And I think the most important time to block out is for meetings. I say that because there's nothing like a meeting to screw up your plans for a day. So seriously, so if you say that I only have meetings on Friday, which I tried to say, but then we end up having our call on Monday. But basically that's the one exception. If you only have calls on Friday, then you're not interrupting those blocks that you've created for yourself, throughout the week. So I think it's really important to, make a list of what are the things you need to do every week, and let's try to keep them together in a certain part of the day, certain part of the week. So you're not like, okay, every day, on Mondays from 10 to 12, I have these meetings, and Tuesday from 3 to 4 of these meetings. And at least for me, that's really hard. And then you start throwing meetings in there, a spur of the moment and whatnot, as opposed to this is a time I've set aside. I think where I've been most successful with this, because I haven't been really successful with some of this blocking out, but it's doing interviews for people. So JR schedules them for me, and people reach out through the site and say, hey, can I have an interview? And he'll say, oh, we've got this opening at 10 o'clock on Friday, the whatever of May, because that's the only time I'm doing it, every single Friday. And I feel like doing that is the one thing I feel most organized with, because I don't have people like, oh, I can't do that time. Can you do Wednesday? Like, no, I can't. Good talk. No, let's shift gears a little bit. This is where like within the audio version, Dan's gonna throw in a big old cheers, but we're gonna do a cheers anyway. There we go. I need another beer. Really, I'm running out already. We actually talked about different stuff yesterday, but there's a couple things that came up that I want to make sure we covered that a lot of people are talking about. Whenever Facebook makes an algorithm change, people gravitate to it and make their assumptions about what it means and how it's going to kill brands and this and that. So there were like 3 different stories that happened at once that I think are somewhat related and I want to talk about. So first of all, yes, the newsfeed update, and pretty much the headline was that I've been seeing essentially that Facebook's going to prefer showing stuff to you from your friends as opposed to brands that you like. Just really not what this update is about. But you want to give us a quick overview of what you see from this update?
Yeah, I mean, so in just reading the thing, so for those of you that don't know this, all the news comes from the media room at Facebook, and it's a great way to follow along on stuff to get it like straight from the source of what Facebook's saying. Whenever you read a story with a flashy headline, that's good.
God, I hate headlines. I hate them. That's why I love boring headlines, because it's just if it's a boring headline, it's the truth as opposed to something that's just like off the wall. But anyway.
Yeah. So the big ones that are from that article and this is what Facebook specifically says. Okay. So I'm quoting now. The first update is improving the experience for people who don't have a lot of content to see. So that's the first one.
And specifically what that is, because it used to be that if there was one person or one source that was posting a lot of stuff that you follow, your friend or whatever, Facebook would limit how much of that you saw from them. But basically they're saying if you don't have very many friends or pages you like in the first place, and basically you're not going to get any content if they do that, they're relaxing that rule, really, is what's happening. Right,
and that should be actually pretty good, I would think.
I would think so.
Brands. And that's not bad, right? The second update was it tries to ensure, quote, that content posted directly by the friends you care about will be higher up in the newsfeed. So that one could interpret that in the article.
And they did. They did
interpret that brand stuff's going to be pushed down. The sentence to me that actually should be reassuring to those of us, it says, quote, if you like to read news or interact with posts from pages you care about, you will still see that content in the newsfeed. So this actually may be this may signal that you would need to interact with things more, and you need but let me just say this: if you see updates from pages and you don't interact with them, you don't like it, you don't comment or share on it, and you just
and
or you don't click through and read it.
no click period. I think that's the key. Like
No click.
everybody assumes it means comment, like, share. I'm not someone who comments, likes, and shares a lot, but
No, but
clicking any kind of click means something.
Right. Exactly. And let's say you never do any of that, not click any of that. Like, how are they supposed to know that you actually like that?
Right. They don't.
Other than you spending time looking at the post, which is probably part of it, algorithmically, that they're measuring, but it's way more powerful if you actually click through.
And that could mean clicking on a photo, can mean clicking to read the comments. It's not the publicly viewable stuff only. It's the stuff that Facebook sees but no one else sees that you're doing. Right.
Right, and so I think that actually, if you it goes back to the long game. If you produce content that people care about, that they want to see, that is valuable to them, they'll interact with that, and over time you'll see more of that. Right. So this is just saying people missed out on stuff from friends and they don't want to do that.
Yeah, that's all.
Which actually, that's the core of what the social network is like finding out news from people you really care about. Yep. So to me, that doesn't say that it's forcing the page stuff down.
And the final bit of that was that there are going to be fewer stories about your friend liked or commented on this post.
And I'm glad about that. I don't think that, I don't really care. Like, sometimes I care.
Yeah, I mean, Facebook says people don't care. That's one I'm not completely convinced on, because I think,
really?
Yeah, because I think that, look, if I didn't see a post when it was posted, when it was shared, and then one of my friends goes back in later and comments on it, that may pull me in. So I actually think that is pretty helpful. Now, again, it doesn't mean they're completely removing it. End of the day, Facebook is going to look at what happens as a result of this change. Because with any of these changes, they're not out to screw brands. They're not out to whatever. They need people to care more about their news feed, so they spend more time on the news feed, so they don't leave, so that they're more valuable to advertisers. If Facebook doesn't make it the best user experience possible, they'll continue to make changes or else suffer and fall away.
The one I would say, and I agree with that, obviously, I mean, that's huge. The part that I don't think has been valuable to a lot of us maybe is when somebody comments on a really old photo and it resurfaces that. That to me is like, I've been seeing a lot of that, where people will go back and they'll comment on something from 3 years ago, and then it resurfaces that. And there's sometimes I'm not that close to. Right. So that's kind of and I give feedback on that, saying, hey, I just don't find this that interesting. But some people may really like that. So yeah, overall, I think these changes are a continuation of what we know and what we see, which is that brands, to be able to be seen, you have to produce content and stuff that really people care about and are going to click on and go through. Sharing posts from another person's page and not offering any comment, but just sharing the link isn't going to cut it anymore.
Right.
And I'm not trying to be like a jerk about this, but
you are a jerk.
That just doesn't provide value, right?
Yeah.
And so I think that's a continuation of things, and there shouldn't be a lot of surprises. And they should adapt and change. The news feed is I would argue, the most important place on the web. So if that should adapt and change with the way that users are interacting with it.
You bet. So that headline is going to get a lot of attention right now, just that the algorithm's changing again. And my least favorite reaction to that is, okay, so this is what brands need to do. They need to change X, Y. I hate that. But anyway, that led me to this other post is closely related. This other, I guess, research by LocalWise. And this was put out by one of my favorite resources. What used to be Inside Facebook and All Facebook, they merged them together and put them into, was it Adweek? Social Times, I believe. Mm-hmm. And LocalWise put out this report that organic reach is down to 2.6%. And that sounds awful, right? In and of itself, 2.6% sounds terrible. And then you start, and that's the headline that organic reach is down and everybody's freaking out. Then you start looking at the actual study, and it just looked like they basically surveyed mainly the big dogs. Because this is just a survey, it's not like overall. If you have fewer than 1,000 fans, those that they surveyed, 22.8%. That's still pretty darn good organic reach per post. 50,000, 100,000. For some reason, they skipped from 1,000 to 50,000, but maybe there's nobody involved in that. Maybe there's just one page was under 1,000. I don't know. 50,000, 100,000 was 9.62%. 500,000 to a million was 7.47%. So far, that's all consistent with everything we've been seeing. And then you get to, okay, you got more than 1 million fans. Screw you, 2.27%. Which makes it, on an average, 2.6%. How many of us have more than 1 million fans, first of all?
Right. I mean, and this, so the interesting thing about this is that, and this is, a lot of people go to the Power Hitters Club, and they talk about, how do I talk about this?
JohnLuber.com/PHC. Okay, go ahead.
And they'll say, how do I talk about this to my clients? So in any of these questions, I challenge all of you that are listening to this, break that down. Okay, break that question down. So first of all, thinking about, if you think about 1 million fans, okay, what's the DNA of how you got those fans there? Okay, so did you in the earlier days do a lot of fan acquisition, or did maybe the page, not you, but did the page? Did the page do a lot of contests? Did the page do a lot of advertising that maybe was trying to get cheaper likes? If the answer is no to all three of those, then I would be very surprised, right? So it's kind of like, out of those, the concept is, what if people saw your stuff that actually wanted to see your stuff? And then when you have 1 million fans, that's not an irrelevant thing. But you look at where a lot of the average page size is probably like, I don't know, 1,500, let's say. And out of the average page size, 20% reach, that's actually really good. Right. You know, a quarter of your people want to be there. If you think of all of your customers in a room, and there's 1,500 of them that really love you, you got them all in a room, and you stood up and said, I have this interesting article to read. How many of them would actually care? If a quarter of them came up to you, you'd be flipping out.
But here's the deal. It's something really important. An important point here. Typically, maybe 30% of your audience is only going to be in the room at the time that you actually
when
say
are they
that.
Online? Right.
Yes. Okay?
Exactly.
That's what we forget. It's not that all 100% of them are in that room when you say that. Most of them aren't there, and they might come back and say, did you hear what Andrew said? That he's drunk and crazy. And he screamed at everybody and said this. But, so that's the first thing. But, so I think that kind of stuff is so misleading that we, first of all, assume that, when we look at those numbers, that it applies to you. But 2.6% really just is applying to those big dogs and whatever. But the other thing, and it actually leads to another story that came out, and I wish I had the name of who put this out, but sorry. It came from Social Times, that brands are posting 31% more often year over year in order to combat reach. Okay, so I think these are really closely connected, and it's important to understand what's happening here. And this is actually something I've recommended in the past. Like, you want to reach more people? Post more frequently. That doesn't mean you're going to reach more people on a post-by-post basis, though. And the side effect of this, the negative side effect, is if everybody is posting more frequently, which is what's happening, clearly, 31% year over year. As we know, there's an algorithm. There's only so much space, so more and more stuff is going to get filtered out. So, like with the big dogs, first of all, you got a couple things working against them. The big dogs, you got over 1 million fans. A lot of casual people like your page. They're like, oh, right. Yeah, no, I know Nike. I like Nike. I'm not going to engage with you. I don't care about anything you have to say. Or you've had a page for 5 years, 6 years, whatever it is. You get so many people who are like, yeah, I'm really into this right now. CrossFit, awesome. And like, screw CrossFit a month later, you know? But you still like the page. But that's what happens when you have these old, established pages that have lots of casual fans. It's like, I think outsiders like, oh, that's just Facebook trying to stick it to the guys with the deep pockets, trying to get them to spend more money. But there's a reason why they have such low reach. It's that they've probably been around for a long time. A lot of people originally liked their page don't care anymore. A lot of people who just casually like their page, this and that. So I feel like I'm going on tangents here, but that's a big contributor to that. And then you got people posting multiple times per day, much more than they used to, which pollutes the news feed. I don't say pollutes, but there's more in the news feed that has to be filtered out. And so then on a post-by-post basis, it's just natural organic reach will go down.
Right, and I'll say one thing about that, and then a second piece about strategy. So on that topic, if you have a lot of fans, then utilize the interest targeting opportunity you have on organic posts.
It's true.
That's something that you have the opportunity to do, and you can show it to people that are maybe more relevant. So that's one thing. As you know, at a risk of like not being Facebook fanboys here.
Oh, you're a fanboy.
The fanboy. Let me just take my elevator downstairs.
That's ridiculous.
But really what it comes down to for me is it's no doubt. We are in an age where Facebook organically is going to be hard to have. It's going to be hard to have an organic strategy 100%. So you have to have some section of that in a paid way. Now, that doesn't have to be a lot, but some part of it has to be paid. And when you think of these things, a lot of people think of the organic and paid, and they're separate silos. But in reality, all of this stuff plays together as one. So when was the last time, and maybe you're an agency and you know, this is advice for you, maybe you're running your own ads, but when was the last time you actually sat down and mapped out the route you would like to acquire fans, you'd like to introduce yourself to people, you'd like to introduce your products to people, your services to people, and how they do that? So how do you, some of it may be organic, some of it may be paid, how do you bring them into your site, how do you use website custom audiences? So all of this stuff about, organic reach, that there's still discussion on this, is crazy to me for two reasons. One is organic reach has been declining and changing for 2.5 years. So the fact that this is a discussion is sort of null. The second thing is if you are still trying to push the organic side of it and you're refusing to spend any dollars, Facebook's really going to be a hard thing to show because they are mutually supportive to each other. It's going to be hard to show growth there. And I'm not saying you have to spend a lot of money, but if you spend it in a targeted way, it can be really powerful. People say, well, I'm not going to spend money on Facebook. I want to, it used to be so great. I'm not going to spend any money on it. But thing is, where else are you spending money? Where else are you spending money right now? And can you try $10? Can you try $100 to try to talk about?
Exactly. If they don't have a marketing budget, they are not a serious business. If they're not spending money on anything, if they're just doing all the free stuff only, yeah, get away. Like, you're not going to be a successful business.
Right. I mean, just doing these things separately doesn't make sense. And thinking about them separately doesn't make sense. So when there's an article talking about organic reach on its own, that to me it's discrediting, because and also they're looking at the gaps of pages that are massive. There's a lot of people that have a lot of fans that don't provide a lot of value. Yeah. You look at somebody like GoPro. What's the organic reach of GoPro? Seriously, I bet it's actually pretty big. But they have 10 million fans?
Right.
I bet you their organic reach is actually maybe 5 to 10%, which is massive for them.
They have interesting content.
Because they have interesting content on a regular basis.
Yeah. Two things on this, and this is one of those times where I'm afraid I'm going to forget the second one when I get to it. But there needs to be a tool created, because I think the biggest issue we have with evaluating expectations for organic reach is that there are these issues that maybe you're a page that just started in the last 6 months, and you're going to get a really good organic reach. Maybe you're a page that started 6 years ago and you accumulated like 1 million fans in that first year, your organic reach is going to be terrible. I think there needs to be a tool that basically tells you you have this many fans, new fans during the last week, 30 days, 6 months, year, and this is what your organic reach is when you reach those groups of people. Because then you actually have something to look at. That actually makes sense. Like because I can't compare my organic reach to someone else if we've been on Facebook and had a page, had fans who've been around at widely different amounts of time. So that's the first thing. Tool that we need to talk about, that we need to create. Second is, again, I feel like I've talked about this a million times, but we got to stop looking at organic reach. I'd like to stop looking at it entirely, but on a post-by-post basis. And I think it's a great example of it. Brands are posting 31% more frequently. So, and there's a reason they're doing that. It's not to increase their post-organic reach. Otherwise, that'd be silly. They're trying to reach more people overall. So let's look at it for what it is. How many people are we reaching per day and per week, not per post? And that's my plea to everybody.
Right. Yeah, and I mean, and some of the tools that you can have as an advertiser or even as a page admin to look at this is, downloading that exportable report and your insights, and there's metrics upon metrics in there. There's the post level report, the page level, and one of them in there is consumptions. And taking that consumption, which is a like, comment, share, click, anything, as a percentage of your unique reach, gives you a really interesting percentages in that week time frame from a page level to start to look at. How many people of your fans saw stuff from you, and how, based upon how many people are actually online and how many people are your fans. So there's really interesting stuff that if you've never dug in there, I would encourage you to do so, that can not actually just look at it from an organic truth perspective, but look at it from what's truly the reach out of what's actually available to see. So, it requires a little bit more work, but the outcome of doing something like this is that it makes people like you and I look better. It makes people that are managing pages and that are agencies, it makes all of us as advertisers look better, folks. I mean, because it's going to make the organic reach look a lot higher, and it's not making it look higher, it is. It's showing just real numbers. So putting some context around that's really important. Anyway, so.
Good points, man. You had some time for one more thing?
Absolutely.
Yeah, so we talked about this yesterday, and I thought we had some good discussion, and then no one heard it. So let's talk about it today. There's been a controversial blog post floating around talking about a Facebook ads bubble. So if there's a Facebook ads bubble, that means we're all going to pop and we just threw away a whole bunch of money. Andrew, what's going to happen?
Well, I mean, the concept of the article was this guy who...
his name is Morgan Hermond Weich, I think. A lingerie startup. He wrote a guest post for TechCrunch.
Right, a lingerie startup. He wrote a guest post in TechCrunch saying that cost per clicks have been increasing, and that essentially their results aren't as good as they were before.
Conversion rate down.
The conversion rate's down. So, as is everything we talked about earlier in this Pubcast, was breaking that down. Okay, what are the things that as a genuine advertiser you see, John? As a problem with what he says.
Okay.
What are the things you see?
Because what I hate about this stuff is that they don't tell the entire story. They don't answer the questions that what I think are the primary reasons for saying there's a bubble, right? So he's like, CPC is up 180%. My response, who cares? I do not care about CPC. I care about what my CPA is, my cost per action. It could be cost per website click, cost per conversion. He mentioned conversion rate down. I don't know what that's based off of. Again, it's a rate. It has nothing to do with cost per conversion. Theoretically, if he's even measuring it correctly of a conversion rate, your conversion rate could be down while your cost per conversion is unchanged, or could even be down. So my question for him, first of all, is what's your cost per conversion? What's your cost per website click? Are you just playing the short game where he's also, and again, I'm going a rant here, but he's also a lingerie startup. I don't know how you even create ads on Facebook and get approved when it's for lingerie. And I'm sure he creates a lot of ads where it's probably very clickable. Lots of images and lingerie and whatnot, but probably people not buying because lingerie, come on. And so I don't know. I just have a lot of questions. I don't know what ads he was creating. I don't know for what purpose. And it's really hard to respond to it.
Right. And I think it's important to look at as well, that he's looking at just clicks, which is like, okay,
Who cares?
a lot of cheap clicks that come through. And another thing that I think is really fascinating about it is he's making huge blanket statements without a lot of substantiated fact. In the last part of the article, he mentions that there is this bubble and people are leaving in mass.
Yeah. Who?
And I guess I'm not knowing that. The question I would ask if I was curious, sitting across from him is, one, how have you been adjusting your strategy based on the fact that prices are going up? And maybe it sounds like maybe there has been a lot of adjustment. But that would be an interesting question. The other one would be, what types of audiences are you using? And what are the varied ways that you're bringing people in, and what's the path to how they're finding out about you? If you're just doing ad to website to buy, that's tough over time. If you can do that, congratulations to you, but that's hard. So, I think those are some of the main parts. And what this all gets to is that being the top dog here, search engine marketing obviously is still pretty hot as well, but Facebook is growing in popularity, and there's always going to be people out there that are looking to kind of make it an enemy and say, it's just not working for us. And it's usually because they haven't adjusted the strategy to kind of appropriately react to where things are. To stay on Facebook and to advertise on this platform, you have to stay up on stuff. You have to make sure that you're reading. That's why the Power Hitters Club is so huge. You have to make sure that you're informed of what's going on because it does change, but it's extremely powerful if you understand those changes and you have a baseline strategy that wraps those in to make sure that you're kind of going towards the ultimate best place.
Yeah, and we're at risk at coming off as fanboys with this kind of stuff. The thing is, it's not that there's some articles that I appreciate where people are criticizing Facebook, and I agree with them, or maybe I don't, but they make a good argument or whatever. I'm just tired of these articles that have horrible argument, and it's contradictory. Because look, you're talking about CPCs going up. Everybody knows that CPCs are going up. It's been talked about forever. And the reason for that is because of increased competition. So if you're saying advertisers are leaving in droves, that makes no sense. Because the CPCs would not be going up as a result, because the competition would be going down. Right. But so the issue is, we know this, CPCs are going up, but what we've been hearing from other reports that are not just this one brand and this lingerie company, it's like all of these companies, what we've been seeing is, yes, these CPCs are going up, but costs per conversion are going down, or they're steady, or whatever. So that's my biggest issue with these types of one-off articles that are just talking about a single brand, is that they don't tell the whole story. They only talk about what happened to their brand, and while leaving out a whole bunch of stats that are pretty darn important.
Right, exactly. Well, John, I can get the bar tab this time since you got it yesterday.
All right, man.
So let me just get the bar tab here.
Why don't you get that bartender?
I got it taken care of.
Last call. Yeah. Thank you. Thanks, Andrew, for joining me twice in 2 days, even though no one could listen to the what was more than likely a classic episode. Remember
it would have been a legendary episode.
Remember when Jerry Seinfeld stopped in? That was ridiculous.
Remember that down in San Diego? That was insane.
Well, I'm talking about yesterday too. Like Jerry Seinfeld stopped in, like all his friends came by.
Again yesterday. Yeah, right. Yeah, the whole crew, the whole Seinfeld cast was there. It was insane.
I'm just sorry everybody missed it. So yeah, thanks so much for coming by. And man, well, once a month we're gonna be doing this. Hopefully, only one recording next time. Maybe we'll be doing this video thing going forward too. We'll see how this goes. But where are people gonna find you, Andrew?
People can find me at foxwelldigital.com or at Andrew Foxwell and at Gracie Foxwell, my wife and business partner, on Twitter.
Awesome. Thank you, dude.
Awesome. You bet. We'll talk to you soon.
You bet.